Hello and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla. This is Carson, and we're so glad you're here with us. Today we're going to talk about some mental health related issues and hopefully start to end some of that stigma around them. When I talk to people about mental health, it's those things that you do day to day to help you manage, right? It's not necessarily that you have a mental illness
Right.
like anxiety or depression or whatever. So you could have a mental illness and have good mental health. You could have no mental illness and have poor mental health, right? And when we talk about mental skills in the performance realm, athletics, music, brain surgery, whatever, right? Those are in the realm of good mental health, those things that you need to do in order to manage life's ups and downs. And in this particular field, specifically around your sport or your whatever you're performing in, right? And so talk about maybe a little bit about some specific types of mental skills, and then like how those end up getting implemented in everyday life, with the athlete perhaps for their sport, but then also in their non-sport world too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's really important too to highlight. This isn't just when you're playing soccer, but
Sure.
the way you talk to yourself matters all the time. And
Right.
your purpose and your why, that matters all the time. So I think kind of what this looks like for athletes to begin with, the foundation for using mental skills, I think, is all knowledge. So about yourself and awareness of what you need and how you're feeling. Then you can take the steps. Okay, what skill do I need to implement? How is
Sure.
that going to look in my life? So that's kind of where I think everything starts, is increasing that awareness of how am I talking to myself? What am I experiencing? What am I enjoying about my sport? Where am I struggling? What stresses me out? Things like that. And so it amazes me when I work with athletes how little time they spend really thinking about their experience and reflecting. And so that's kind of my first challenge to them, is just take 5 minutes after practice or after a game and really think about how you felt and what went on and what were you working on and what are your goals, and just ask yourself questions, because
where's your focus, right?
they go through the motions, and they're so often told what to do and critiqued, and they're only thinking about their mistakes, and they come in for practice, they spend 2 hours, it's hot, they're tired, they go home, sleep just to do it all again. And they get in these routines. And so then when I, as a consultant, have, the hour with them that I do, and I ask them, what was practice like? Well, how did you feel? What
It
were
was
you
just
thinking?
practice. What do you mean?
Yeah, and then they dig deeper and deeper, and they have so many thoughts and feelings about what happened. And then at the end, I always ask, like, how did it feel to simply think deeply about your experience? And they're, I've never done this before. I certainly never think about the positives. That's the kicker too, is
Sure.
they never take the time to think about what they did well.
Well, because they should be happening, right? So like a lot of times we talk about, you should praise somebody 5 times more than you criticize them,
Yeah.
right? They're like, well, why do I have to praise them for doing what they're supposed to be able to?
Yeah.
Like if you scored, like, why do I have to tell you good job? Because that's your job to score.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because that's what we do to build people up, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Help with our confidence. Yeah, exactly. So as far as what mental skills looks like for athletes, I think that is the beginning. And if you're interested in learning more about mental skills, seeking out a professional and learning more about what you might need as an athlete. But then once you know these skills, you can only implement them if you know yourself and you know what you need and you know in what instances to use what. So taking time to reflect, I think journaling is always a really good option. Having more conversations with, whether that's with parents, coaches, teammates, about your experience, that is a great place to start.
So journaling, we hear that thrown around a lot,
Mhm.
right? And I think most people imagine this notebook with a bunch of blank pages and you just start writing,
Yeah.
right? And so often I hear, okay, so my journal's open and I have my pen.
Why don't I feel better?
Well, and I have no idea what to write.
Yeah.
So I'm writing kind of like I went to the field. I kicked the ball.
Yeah.
I like, but that's not journaling.
Yeah.
Right. So, what are some tips that you have, or what are some things that you found to be useful when it comes to journaling? Um, I know I have my little pocket full of stuff, but like I'm
Yeah.
curious, like how do you help folks to begin that journaling process? Because a blank page isn't going to.
It's intimidating too.
Well, and like, what do you do? Like, what do you write?
Yeah.
Where do you
Or like,
begin?
I felt crappy. Okay, that didn't make me feel better to write it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think this is where having a consultant that is able to give you kind of prompts and guide you through that's the
Prompts are
key.
so important. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am the biggest fan of worksheets, and I think filling out a worksheet that is journaling to me. Just writing things down.
If they're done well. Right.
Yeah. And so I mean, I make worksheets upon worksheets of just guided reflection questions. And so, I mean, daily recap of practice. How was I feeling mentally today? How was I feeling physically? What's something I did well? What's something I struggled with?
Sure.
And like, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Once you start realizing, oh, I actually, a lot more happened in that last hour than I thought. And I had a lot more feelings or experiences than I even noticed because it goes by like this because I'm just tired and I'm ready to get home and eat.
Right.
Like, that's the first step. Slow down, think about it, and now we can have a conversation. Now we can think, okay, you said you were feeling really distracted that entire hour. Like, what can we do about that? How do we help your focus? And then the mental skills come into play. So yeah, definitely prompts.
Well, and it's interesting because I think also we think journaling like these really,
Pretty.
yeah, and then also full sentences, complete paragraphs, this, novelette. But there's a lot of journaling research out there that shows just even bullet points
Yeah.
and things like that. You know, sometimes when there's just so much going on, I like to tell people just to do some dumping.
Yeah.
So just literally everything that comes to your head. I gotta get gas. I went to the store. I did, even if it doesn't make any sense, but just bullet points. And you just dump and dump and dump and dump and dump and dump until you cannot dump anymore. And then you go through and you kind of pull out some themes.
Yeah.
And then you can, if needed, you can then further expand on those types of things, or journaling can also look like, so maybe somebody is really good at pointing out how they screwed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which more people are better at that than, the other way around.
Yeah.
Right. So, then maybe the journaling is about, list 3 to 5 things that you did well, or maybe if that athlete tends to be more, self-centered and has a harder time being more cooperative,
Mm-hmm.
more of a team player. Like maybe that's something they're working on. Maybe then they just jot down 3 or 4 things that they did during that practice or that game that demonstrated teamwork. Right. So like it doesn't have to be this, Anne Frank type journaling that that we're used to seeing in these biographies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, those are gifted people who understand. That's a different realm, right? But it could simply be those kind of bullet points or a particular focus of something you're working on. But you're right, a professional is usually what's going to help guide that. It's also what helps sustain that, right? Now, that's not to say that they're going to force you to do these things, but more people are likely to do the homework between sessions if they know they have to come back and
They
be accountable to somebody else,
and that's
right?
what writing things down does too. I think, like you said, just like putting it out there is just vastly different from having it in your head. And so I'll sometimes even have a blank sheet, and as the client's talking, I start making this web of like, okay, you said this is an issue. Here's all the ways that that's impacting you. What else do you think's going on? And we create this whole web that's written out, and now they can see, oh, okay, this is all really stemming from this thing.
Right. I call those mind maps, but yeah, they're webs. It's exactly it. That's so true.
And it makes it concrete, and they can see it, and they think, okay, well, now let's cross out the things that I have no control over. Let's make a separate map for the things I can control, and like then you dive deeper and deeper, and it's just it's easier to see and walk through, I think, than sometimes thinking.
Well, it's also and the journaling allows for some physical things. So I like that web idea. I use it a lot. The other idea that I like, there's a couple journaling theories, I guess, or ways of looking at things that say that you do your writing and then you destroy it, that you don't keep it, right?
Yeah.
But
But
I love, I'll take that and say, okay, all this negative garbage that we're dumping. So we're mind dumping all this negative junk, right? And we get it out there and we get it out there, we get it out there, and then we light it on fire.
yeah,
Man, we love burning stuff around my office,
yeah, or
we,
crumple it
we got
up.
we got we got a garbage can, to keep it safe and everything like that. But there's something about the destruction of those negatives that make it so powerful
Right.
that then we can now move on and go into different things. So yeah, so journaling isn't this like grandma thing.
There's no right way
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like. It's whatever works for you.
Exactly, exactly. So remember, you could change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well being. So until next time, continue working on being the best you possible. Bye.